ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ Singh Army podcast, the sole purpose. Baji, what is the sole purpose?
So we are going to have a look at what is our purpose in life in terms of what is the purpose for our soul. So our Atma that is inside us, that has travelled through many life forms, what is the purpose of us in this world? What have we come for? And before you look at what we've come for, you've got to look at where we've come from. And in Gurbani, Maharaj describes of this philosophy of reincarnation, the word to put in English, that you come in many life forms, you die, and your purpose is to meet again with God, Akal Purakh Vaheguru. And there's a Shabad Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji's, and they describe how we go through this life cycle. Kei janam pe keet patanga, kei janam gajmeen kuranga, kei janam pankhi sarp hoye, kei janam haver brick jeo. And it goes in that Shabad, it's saying all these different life forms. So kide, pe keet patanga, like little ants and worms and insects, through to elephants and animals that are flying. You've been through all of those, but what is our purpose now? Mil jagadis haver brick jeo. So you've come to actually meet with God. Our purpose on this world is to get to God after coming through all of these life forms.
Baji, I'm going to ask you simply, is there any proof of all these life forms that the soul has travelled, all of these life forms? And in Sikhi, just to clarify, Maharaj tells us 8.2 or 8.4 million?
8.4.
8.4 million life forms on this earth. There's underground, there's overground, there's in the sky, there's everything.
Yeah.
And the highest, from the Bhakti that you've just read there, the highest life form is a human life form, because in that life form we can reach Waheguru, God. We can reach God. The soul can reach God in that life form. So tell me, what proof have we got of that?
So in terms of proof of different life forms, there's loads of different examples that you can look at where someone has remembered past lives, which would give you evidence. And I'll give you can actually just Google it and you'll see like random examples from like Gore and different things. But I'll give you one from Singhs. Recent times, the people that I'm going to talk about are still alive. So when they were born and they were young, they were twins, two Singhs, and they used to obviously be growing up together, playing and all of that because they're twins. And when they were about 5 years old, they said, we can remember our past Janam, and we used to be best friends who lived in a bend. And we were playing, and I can't remember the name of the bender that they said, but they were playing in this bend, and how they both died was they were running, and one fell in the coup, and the other one fell in the coup, or something like that, that they both died together. And because of that kind of brotherhood that they had, not actually being brothers, but being best friends, that kind of relationship they have, we've now come together again in a human form. So the last time they had the human form, they didn't quite do enough to get to God, but they didn't fall down the ladder, as it were. And they remembered the exact spot that they got killed. Just random facts about the bender that only someone that was alive then would have known. They gave loads of them, and people checked it out with the kind of whatever was going on at the time in the bend, and they remember their previous life.
You're right. I think there are various stories around the world of this happening, and we say the highest form, like we said earlier, is the human form. There's two ways that people look at that. Living here in a Western country, in Europe, in the UK, I think people understand that this life form is precious. But what some people take away from it is YOLO. You only live once. Enjoy yourself. Do what you want, because you're not going to get this life back, essentially speaking.
I think, obviously, when you look at it in the kind of wider picture, you could say that is the system that is set up out there. So you've got God, who's the creator, but Maharaj created Maya, and Maya is the thing that eats up the world. So all of that kind of temptation that's saying, live once, sharab's good, all of that for your physical health isn't good anyway. We know that, but we go for that kind of lower pleasure, and it's described by like philosophers and stuff as well of difference in pleasure. So you've got like lower pleasures are just of the body, or you've got pleasures of the mind, and Maya will lead us to believe that pleasures of the body are ultimate, but actually it's pleasures of the mind that make us different to animals. So you were saying, why is it the top one, it's because we don't just chase the kind of desires of our body, but a lot of the world will tell us to do that. They'll tell us that it's not fun to be into Sikhi, but actually, if you try it, I don't think there's anything more fun that there is than living the way of the Khalsa.
What is a desire or a fruit of the mind, of the soul?
In terms of like what you get from,
So we've said about the physical.
yeah.
So now you're talking about the soul. You said you get a lot of it from the soul. Give me an example.
I guess we get like positive gun or positive attributes come into our life once we awaken to a higher consciousness. So this is what I'm talking about. So we're talking about the constant pursuit of materialistic obsessions is outweighed by extreme contentment. So whilst looking inwardly, we gain a lot. We don't actually need a lot of external possessions and things like that to actually tell us how to live and actually give our life any meaning. So to answer your question, a pleasure of it is actually the gaining of real life attributes that actually matter.
And our process, our relationship with the soul, with our own souls, how does it differ from all the other religions? Hinduism has some similar beliefs. How are we different?
So like I think I want to say it's physics. I think it is. The energy can't be created or destroyed. It can just be transferred. And the soul is an energy and it can't be created or destroyed. It's just transferred. Therefore the soul, our energy, just flows through different life forms and things like that. So in terms of reincarnation, it's Buddhists kind of believe in a form of reincarnation. So do the Sanatan Dharam, the Hindu Dharam. But the Western faiths have a kind of a different understanding of things, which is kind of like Judgment Day, or a kind of a death of the person, and then kind of a judgment.
We have a judgment. We have Dharam Raj. We have a Judgment Day process, so to speak.
Yeah, something similar to that. Yeah, absolutely. But like, I guess.
So just tell us then, what would be the process of the soul? So once, obviously, we die, which everyone will do eventually, and then what's the journey? What's the process?
So it can vary. There's different Sakyas. There's a Sakya of like Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji, and they're like Guru Sikhs gone, and they're going through these different realms and stuff. And there's a Sakya of like when the Guru Sikh heard like the Tuni and went through different kind of life forms with Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji as well. So you can kind of go through those different life forms, but it's about kind of working your way to the top. But then even within being a human, it depends on that kind of mental consciousness of what you've kind of dared in terms of what you'll go on to next. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you don't make it, you definitely become a different animal again. You could become human again and again.
Yeah, and it's different journeys, I think. So to be completely honest, so sometimes we kind of undersell this in Gurbani, is there is talk about suffering, suffering for the people that haven't lived their life according to Gurmat and kind of been obsessed with obsessions and sin, so to speak. And even sin is something that I think people steer away from because it sounds preachy and religious. But absolutely, people that have lived their life engrossed in Bab, their journey is different to people that are quite spiritually elevated. I think there's a Bankt in Gurbani which actually talks about re re dargah kahe na ko ao bat adar subdeo, that actually when somebody of a high spiritual consciousness passes away, they don't say re re, which means like oi. They don't boss him around and say oi oi tibet re re dargah kahe na ko ao bat. Adar means satkar, adar means respect, but it's satkar nal they say to him itte baitho ji, itte jao ji, and that's that person's journey to Dharmaraj and eventually beyond.
So the soul, it can get caught up in the journey, and that's here. So coming back, depending on your life, your actions, your thoughts, there's references to the thoughts, coming back as a snake, coming back as a pig. Tell us a little bit about that.
So in terms of thoughts, so obviously your actions throughout your life would determine what you're going to think about as well. So if you think about Wise Mara talked about last breath, because what you could say is I'm not going to jab naam at all until my last breath, and then I'm going to say Vaheguru, and then I go to Satkhand. That you could take that meaning from that Shabad, but actually, what's going to make you say, because we don't know when we're going to die, so what's going to make you say Vaheguru on your last breath when you don't know when your last breath is? Like if you said to me, say Vaheguru on minute 10 of the recording, I know when that is. You can nod, I'm there, I say Vaheguru. When it comes to our death, we don't know that. So the kind of actions we do will lead us to our thoughts at the end of our life. So if we're really family orientated, we'll remember our family. And in that it says, if you remember your houses, you come back as a ghost and you haunt that house. If you remember your family, you come back as a pig, because they just kind of, just stay around their own. And, so Maharaj is then at the end saying that if at the last breath you think about Vaheguru, you will go to Vaheguru. Because what that actually means is, with not just your last breath, but with every breath, you remember Vaheguru. Therefore, with your last one, naturally, because that's what you do with every breath, you say Vaheguru and you become one. So it's about constant repetition throughout your life, not just that last second.
And Baji, tell us a little bit about how can we enlighten the soul, and what are signs that the soul is content, the soul is at peace, the soul is in a good place.
I think whilst we're alive, it's hard to tell because we're still living in Maya, so everything else kind of engrosses into it. And actually, thinking that you're getting somewhere is a rakavat on the path anyway. It's a bump in the road, because actually, if you start to tell people, "Oh, I've got this avastha, I know this, I've realised this," actually, you're getting egotistical, so you're actually falling trapped to the mind. So a person that's might be moving through it, they don't actually tell people, but it's that kind of underly kid that, and only they'd be able to describe it. And Gurbani describes it like that as well. That is like jacking, like for someone who can't speak and they taste gur, which is like really, really sweet. They can't explain that flavour because they haven't got the ability to talk, but they have had the flavour. Yeah. So you can taste something and not tell. So we've just eaten, I taste the cake, but I can't talk to physically tell him about it. He doesn't know, but I do know because I've had it. And that's how Gurbani describes it, and that's what Gurmukh say, that they can't necessarily always say what that kind of sweet taste is from japping the naam, but it's about doing it. And that's a big part of our sole purpose, is to be able to, if we're trying to fight our hankar, we have to fight our hankar to a point that I can say, I will just trust whatever you say, Guruji. Yeah. That my full process in you. And that's like, that's your sharda. And having sharda, that's one of the three things that Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Gursikhs asked them. We naam karang sad ka sang nischa apang. That I have naam da rang, so like singing Gurbani, the rang of Gurbani, sad ka sang, so the sad sangat. But the last bit, the key bit to the Sikhi is nischa apang. That if that faith, if you want to call it blind faith, whatever, that kind of belief is broken at any point, that breaks the relationship with Guruji, because you are then not defeating your mind and your ego, you're using your ego to question what Guruji said.
Yeah, and I think, when we think about Maya, the illusion, or the thing that's going to take us away from where we should be heading, or limit our enlightenment, we think about like material possessions and maybe certain vices and sins and stuff. But more so than that, when people do even spiritual or religious deeds out of ego, even that can be like a form of Maya, which is very difficult, because someone gets their life on track, starts doing some religious stuff, but really wants to be a somebody, right? And they're doing some stuff out of ego. And I think this is probably the crux of Sikhi, almost, in very simple nutshell, is it's not really, of course, there's things that we're supposed to do, Nitnem, and all the part that we're supposed to do, and whatever we're supposed to do, but it's what we do with what intention. And ultimately, if we do something out of love, out of genuine love, like nobody's watching, like like you're not going to get anything from it, that really, really matters. And so, like, of course, there's stories of Singhs that have sat there for, many, many hours and done bhakti and stuff like that. But actually, Guru Gobind Singh Ji says, "Ek chet jeh chinate ayo, kal fas neech na ayo." That actually, it's only going to take a split second, like a tiniest split second, and that's it. You're saved. Which sounds mad, because people have put in hours and hours and hours and hours of this, but it's only going to take this tiniest time frame to actually get there. And I think what it comes down to is intention, nothing else really. It's not how much. Of course, how much has an absolute part of the equation, but it's what mind frame and what bhavana that we actually do it with.
And definitely it's about building up to that mindset as well. So what Badi was saying there about, it's, you know, different people having different kind of thought process behind giving, or that charity or the seva aspect of Sikhi, that Maharaj actually describes 4 different types of like date satya man santok upche dene ke vichar de de mange se aisa guna sob kare sansar. That the first type of people who give in this world, you do the arth of this pankti. So I read it forwards, but to do the translations, you go from the back to the front. So you do it backwards. So sob kare sansar, you get those people who give to look good, and it's almost like egotistic kind of. It's and there's a theory in ethics actually that a human behavior is all controlled around actually trying to fuel your own ego. So sob kare sansar, that person who gives, so the world kind of they want the world to say, oh wow, look at that guy. De de mange sesa guna. So you got those who give and they want loads more. So you know, they go and do an ardas, Maharaj, I've given £5, they come at ardas, you tell the whole world, you put your name on the bakka, but when you've given that £5, you've asked for, Maharaj, I want my business to make millions. So, you know, they mange sesa guna, that they've given, but they want loads more back. And then you got dene ke vichar. So you got, you know, he's going to do it. It's probably me this. Like, I want to do it. I'm not really that bothered if anyone, you know, bigs me up or not. But what I am going to do is, just before I give it, I'm going to think, oh, shall I give it? Oh, it'd be better in my bank account. So it's not for anyone else, but it's for me. So dene ke vichar, that den lage vi vichar kar karke, and then they give it, and they feel good for a day, and then fear, oh, yo, you know, if I kept that £300 that I sent to that thing, I could have done. So you've got those people who dene ke vichar, but the asli date, satya man santok upje, is that person, you get to that much santok, that much contentment, that you give it, and you just have complete, you're not bothered. You just santok that you're just happy that it's done.
I just wanted to pick up something about you were saying, like how I think more so, you know, we were saying how it can only take an instant. I think what we're after is that instant of grace. That all we want is Guru's Kirpa. That's all it is. But Sadda like countless shabds say, Simro, Sukapavo, like do remember Vaheguru with every breath. Simro, Sas, you know, Din Rati Aradu, day and night. That's Sadaqam, is to do Simran day and night. But all we want is just that one glance of grace, like we do Mool Mantra every day, Guru Prasad. That's all we want is Guru's Kirpa. And then, so Guru Sikh said to me, the more you surrender yourself, the more you'll receive. So the more you give yourself to Vaheguru. When I do this Simran, it's not me doing it. We're not doing Simran. It's only, I was watching this thing actually. I got sent this video. I think, was it from yourself? I can't remember actually. Is this Muslim he's on stage and he's saying, look, I've been doing Allah. I've been calling out for Allah for so many years that I got vexed. I was like, you know, Allah, you're not listening to me. So, and someone was gingerly sharing and they said, like, you keep saying Allah, but have you seen Vaheguru? Have you seen Rabb? Have you seen God? Have you seen Vaheguru? And he was like, nah. So you know what happens? He stops. Then God comes, Bargat, Vaheguru, Kalbrug themselves come in front of him, and he asks the question like, Rabba, for all them years I was doing Vaheguru, I've stopped now, how come you come now? Like, you know what I mean? Didn't you care about me then? And what Vaheguru says is, what the response that God gives to this guy is, the fact that you were allowed to say Allah the second time, that's my presence there. Otherwise, you know, like you were saying before, our next breath, we don't know when it's going to be. So who are we to decide to say on the last moment when it comes? Allah, Punjabi mentality is, you know, when we're a bit siane hoke, or you know what I mean? When we're a bit older, we'll give up the bottle then. We'll start going to the Gurdwara then. But really and truly, and again, I know you were saying about how to find peace and stuff like, and within yourself. Like a lot of people, they find it hard to switch off, so they're stuck in a rat race, 9 to 5. They come home, they're still thinking about work, especially with everyone working from home now. But really and truly, there's one thing that you guys can do that will help you switch off, and that will help you, you know what I mean, take a lot of stress off your mind, your body as well. Also, is that meditation, is that Simran, is just taking that bit of time out, whether it's yourself, with your family, and just, you know what I mean, that is actually you time. Do you know what I mean? Where you're connecting, you're your spiritually, like we were talking about energy, how it passes on. That's the time you can tap into that energy. And one thing I wanted to say was that sometimes we feel as if Maharaj is very far away from us, or we have to reach out to Waheguru. But Waheguru is more closer to you than your next breath. That's why Guru Ang Sang Sai Honda. That's why so many Guru Sikhs were happy and they smiled at the face of Shidi because they knew Waheguru was with them. You know what I mean? In wherever their soul was, wherever their body was, whatever it was, Guru Sahib was with them, close to them to the next breath. And the only way they got to that state, that mentality, was by doing Simran and was by doing Bhakti and by living that every second, living Sikhi with every second. So that's yeah.
How close is the relationship, or is there a relationship between your conscience and your soul?
So your conscience comes within, we call a hirda. Now you could loosely say that your hirda could be seen as the point in your body where your soul resides. Yeah, it's that kind of point that takes you through your soul back to God. So that could be your bit of Paramatma, your Atma. And it's about feeling that connection through actually japping Naam, because that's the tuni that takes us back to that. So it's a sound. So everything's based around a sound, and that sound for us to connect, the connecting sound for us is Vaheguru or Gurbani, and it's all got the same colour. So like if we look at the Shahidi of the Gursikhs with Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji, one's doing Vaheguru Mantra, one's doing Japji Sahib, one's doing Sukhmani Sahib. They're all japping that tun, and it can be accessed in different forms because Guru Sahib's given it for everyone. If you have an updesh that is Sanja for the world, that has to be for Pade Likhe and Jede Anpada. And that's why in Gurbani it says, Jo Prani Gobind Tyave, Padya Anpadya Paramagat Pave. That it doesn't matter if you're Padya Likhya, that you can read, write, you're educated, or if you're Anpad, everyone can remember one word. You remember each other's names, you can remember just that one word. And that one word's Vaheguru. And it's so powerful, just that one word, that in Gurbani it comes, there's a Sakhi of someone called Ajamal. And it says, in Gurbani it says, Ajamal Papi Sabjag Janne, that he was such a big papi back in the day, in Sadjug, that the whole world knew that he was papi. Had a son with a prostitute, and they named their son Narayan. And just because he constantly called out his son's name, Narayan, which means Narayan. Rayan means night. That which within there is no darkness, there is no night. The only one that has no darkness, no night, is Akal Purkh Vaheguru. So by describing God, that quality of God, that having no darkness, by saying Narayan, Ajamal, on his deathbed, calling out for his son, and Ajamal Papi Vitargya, because in that one shin, he didn't call his son. He actually clicked that what Narayan really is. And what can help us click? So let's say we're like in a car journey and we're going up the M1. What's going to pick us up from junction 10 and take us to the end? What's that kind of, that medium, that kind of carrier? And that carrier can come in different forms. The first form, obviously, and the ultimate form that I can do it in a second, is Guru Sahib. So we go and get the darshan of Guru Sahib. That can help us cleanse our soul and move further on this. And then we can also meet Gurmukh Sajjans. And it comes in Gurbani loads of times of who's our true friend. And like about Jetu Mitra Sadara, that actually our pure only friend is Vaheguru, but also alongside them, in the form of them, that you can become friends with, are Sants, and they can also kind of skip you through some junctions and take you to another level because they're one. They've got that sparish. So, like in the dunya, especially like in dodgy countries like India, where they're trying to, everyone's on the like little pull. It's about who you know. And a Mahapurush knows God. That's their friend. Yeah. So that's their best friend. They can get whatever you want done of them. So if you tell the best friend gets it done. And that's how it's like with Mahapurush. And they take loads of different forms. And the reason for that is because Guru Sahib wants to help all types of Gursikhs, not just one type. So you get Mahapurush from different Jathebandiya. Whether someone calls him a Sant, a Mahapurush, or a Das, or a Pai, or whatever it is, that doesn't matter. Because their kirpa, the kala that they're vartaying, is still that kala of Vaheguru. Kala Vaheguru kiya. But it's in the form of the Sant. And they come in all these different Jathebandiya, and they help teleport people up the path. And ultimately, they do that, what's the one sanja thing that you get from all of those Mahapurush? Whether they tell you to do whatever abhyas, what nityanem they tell you to do, whatever kind of angle of different kind of political stuff they're coming from, the one thing that all of them say that's universal is Amrit Shago. And even after that, they do Shankar and other things. The one main thing that we can take that takes us on this path is commit yourself to the Guru and to the Sad Sangat and take Amrit. Give your head and say to Maharaj, you lead me on this path.
You're talking about baptism and Amrit.
Yeah.
What does that do for the soul?
So if you imagine your soul needs to be drenched in the water of Naam, yeah, it needs to be completely drenched. Now, if you think in India back in the day, to make a judha nalka banaida, so you dig in, you know, obviously with the farmer stuff going on, we're saying that we're having to dig further into the ground to get the water, like XOV put. When you dig that, now the water's in the bottom of the tarti, isn't it? It's coming from underneath. But to get the nalka, to get the well to work, the first thing you have to do is put some water into it, for then the water to come back up and provide water for millions or hundreds and thousands of acres of land. But to start that process, you just had to put a little boond in, banj boond in the form of amrit. So it's like putting water into that nalka, then your naam comes through Jaljanda, and then Maharaj says, Gurbani says as well, ek boond jinapai, just with one boond of amrit naam, once you put that in you through the Panj Pyare, then actually by reciting naam, and then it's just, if you want to keep it wet, if you want the water to keep coming out the nalka, you have to gear the nalka. So you have to actually push it. It doesn't just keep coming. It's not just leaking out. So our job is to gear the nalka and just keep japping naam.
But you know the naam, you know, you said about, is that something you can receive from Panj Pyare only then? Or?
So when you're japping naam without receiving the Panj Pyare, what you've done is you're gearing the nalka at the top, but you've not actually put the water in. So you might actually build up loads of pressure. So when the water goes in, the process happens quicker, but you still have to put the water in, and that is from the Panj Pyare. So you might build up loads of extra energy, but until you put the water in, you're not going to get any water back out.
Yeah, but I always heard that if your dil is soft, then that's okay. Last question. Describe to me the characteristics of a soulless person.
So, in terms of soulless, obviously you've got so they will have a soul, but it's someone, you know, who doesn't show those signs of being aware of their soul. So it's about being aware of your soul purpose, and that kind of person is the kind of person that just by being with them, you'll want to forget God, because you'll want to remember. If you're not remembering God, what are you remembering? You're remembering Maya. So that person, just by being with them, or let's go to a club, let's go to a pub, let's do whatever. Now, we don't disrespect that person because they have got a soul. They just haven't realized it. We're not judging them, but we stay away from them so we keep our vibes positive.
Okay, and the quickest way to merge our soul back with the Creator, to be drop back into that ocean, is which way?
I don't know is the answer, but what I do know is a simple pankti that all of us know, and he's actually got the answer in it, which is Gyan Tyan Kich Karam Na Jana Sar Na Jana Tere. I think that's where it comes down to. We're not gonna, you know, the ins and outs of the soul and the journey the soul takes to the afterlife is very complex. It goes over my head personally. It's very complex. But what we do know is Sabte Vadda, and that's it. And it's very simple. It's just about committing, more so submitting to the Guru, and actually falling on this path. Oda, in terms of the actual nitty gritties of it, is quite deep, and I'm sure people can.
But you know what? To keep it simple, another pankti a lot of us will know from Rera Sahib is that Maharaj is saying, "Pei parapet manak de hariya," that you've come to this world to meet Vaheguru. Go bin miran ki eh teri bati. This is your opportunity. You don't have no other work to do. There shouldn't be any other work that you put higher than this. Mila Sahib Sangat, meet with the holy congregation, with the Sahib Sangat, Bad Keval Nam, and vibrate on Keval, the only thing that we need to do is remember Vaheguru. So I urge everybody to just try doing, whether it's 1 minute a day, whether it's 30 seconds a day, however long you can remember Vaheguru, and do the Guru Mantra, say Vaheguru, Mool Mantra, listen to some Pad, listen to some Kirtan, please. That's the only thing that is going to be your saviour in this world.
I think there's no time like the present, and I think 30 seconds is something that we've all got. So if we get everyone around the mics.
Vaheguru, 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 Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.